They said she vanished, that the billionaire heiress of the Blackwell fortune had fled the limelight after her father's sudden death. Rumors swirled. Some claimed she was kidnapped. Others whispered she'd gone mad. But no one could have guessed the truth. Aurora Blackwell was standing at the gates of someone else's mansion, wearing a uniform, holding a clipboard, and pretending to be ordinary. Aurora's fingers tightened around the clipboard as the early morning breeze swept through her oversized navy blue jacket. The crisp cotton itched against her skin, nothing like the silk she used to wear. Her honey blonde curls were tucked neatly beneath a baseball cap, and the scent of grease from the estate's security outpost clung to her. She glanced at the tall iron gates and exhaled slowly. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "No more penthouses. No more bodyguards. Just obscurity." Behind her, the world she once knew, a world of privilege and pretense, was crumbling. In front of her stood the Williams estate, owned by a rival empire, one her late father often warned her about. But that was before betrayal shattered everything. A flicker of nerves trembled in her chest as the estate's head of security barked at her from the intercom. "You're late." "I'm Aurora," she said coolly. "The new gatekeeper." First day, a buzz, a creak, and the heavy gates opened slowly, like the mouth of fate welcoming her in. It was just after sunrise when the sleek black Bentley glided toward the gate. Aurora straightened, the cold metal of the gate controls biting her fingertips. The car slowed. A window rolled down with the smooth hum of power and precision. Her heart skipped. He sat there, Adrian Williams, 34, billionaire heir, the kind of man whose eyes spoke more than his mouth ever would. Dark suit, darker stare, jaw carved from stone and lips set in a permanent frown. "You're new," he said without a smile. "Yes, sir," Aurora replied, lifting her chin slightly. Aurora, a flicker of interest. Barely there, but she caught it. "Open the gate." She obeyed. As the Bentley slipped past, she felt the weight of his gaze linger on her. Not because he recognized her, he didn't, but because something about her unsettled him, and something about him ignited her. Aurora pressed her back against the wall of the gatehouse after Adrian's car disappeared around the bend. Her heartbeat pounded like a war drum in her chest. She had rehearsed this moment 100 times in her mind, how she'd face him, how she'd remain calm. But nothing had prepared her for him. His presence was overwhelming, controlled, dangerous. And he had looked at her, not with recognition, but with curiosity. That was dangerous. Inside the estate, Adrian tapped the wheel once, then again unsettled. Something about the girl gnawed at him. He'd hired a dozen gatekeepers in the past, but none had made his chest tighten the way she just had. He brushed the thought aside. Feelings like that got you killed in business. That evening, Aurora stood by the entrance in the fading light, pretending to read a schedule chart while stealing glances at the mansion beyond the hedges. Somewhere in there was the truth she'd come for. Somewhere inside that empire was a man who had betrayed her father. And maybe, just maybe, Adrian wasn't the enemy she had once thought. "Hey!" She flinched. A tall woman with red lipstick and fierce stilettos stood before her. Elise Morgan, Adrian's head of operations and, rumor had it, occasional companion. "You're the new girl?" Elise said, eyeing Aurora like she was gum-stuck to a Louboutin. "Yes. You'll do as you're told, and you won't ask questions. That's how you last in this place." Aurora's jaw tensed. Of course. But inside, she was already asking questions. Too many. It was nearly midnight when Aurora heard footsteps approaching from behind. She turned sharply, And there he was again, Adrian. No suit this time, just a dark t-shirt and sweatpants. Still unfairly magnetic. "You're still here?" he asked. "Security protocol," she said, trying not to meet his eyes. "You're not like the others." His voice was quiet, almost amused. She bit the inside of her cheek. "And you're not what I expected." That made him pause. He stepped closer, too close. "And what exactly did you expect?" She didn't answer, because the truth was dangerous. Because she had loved his voice once, before she knew who he was. Because she had whispered his name in her sleep long, before she vowed revenge. The morning sun cast golden rays across the estate, but Aurora felt nothing but storm inside. She had spent the night replaying Adrian's words. "You're not like the others." She couldn't be. She was Aurora Sinclair, heiress to the Sinclair dynasty, not some faceless employee. Yet here she was, dressed in the same pressed gray uniform, guarding a gate to a fortune that should have been hers. "Good morning." Adrian's voice pulled her back to reality. He stood in front of her again, this time with 2 cups of coffee in hand. "I figured night duty deserved a reward." She blinked. He was offering her coffee. Thank you, sir," she managed. "Adrian," he corrected, handing her the cup. She took it with trembling fingers, their hands brushing ever so slightly. If he only knew who she really was. That afternoon, Aurora wandered into the East Garden during her break. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the low murmur of Adrian's voice, clipped and intense, held her still behind the hedge. "Why are Sinclair shares moving again?" he asked someone on the phone. Sinclair, her family name. She leaned in too far. A twig cracked beneath her shoe. Silence. "Who's there?" Adrian's voice snapped. She ducked behind the statue, heart racing. She shouldn't have heard that. She shouldn't even be here. But as she crouched there, catching her breath, a bitter truth took shape in her mind. Adrian knew more about her family than he'd ever let on, and now he'd seen a shadow move. Her cover was starting to crack. Later that night, a sudden thunderstorm swept the estate. Aurora, soaked from a patrol round, ran toward the main house for shelter. She didn't expect to find Adrian standing under the front awning, eyes closed, head tilted back to catch the rain. She froze. He opened his eyes and smiled faintly. "Don't like the rain?" "It reminds me of endings," she whispered. He looked at her for a long time. "For me, it reminds me that even the powerful can't control everything." His words caught her off guard. Was he speaking about business or himself? Then she saw it. The faint scar peeking from the collar of his shirt. Faded, jagged, real. For a moment, they weren't billionaire and gatekeeper. They were 2 broken souls, soaked in silence, hiding scars behind tailored clothes and borrowed names. The rain had passed, but something lingered, an ache that Aurora couldn't shake. That night, while cleaning out the old gatehouse drawer, she stumbled across a crumpled paper beneath a loose board. She unfolded it carefully. A contract. Sinclair Holdings. Her breath caught. The document was old, dated just 2 years back, and Adrian's name was right there in ink, beneath her father's signature. He wasn't just an outsider. He was involved. Why hadn't she known about this? She traced her finger over her father's name, heart thudding. Had Adrian helped save the company or helped take it? The gatekeeper uniform suddenly felt like a straitjacket. She wasn't just watching from the sidelines anymore. She was standing in the middle of a storm that had her family's legacy at the center. And Adrian was no longer just a charming enigma. He was a threat. The next evening, Adrian appeared again, this time beside the marble fountain near the courtyard. Aurora had come there to clear her thoughts. He said nothing at first, just stood beside her as the water danced between them. You ever feel like the past never really lets go? He asked quietly. Aurora glanced at him. His eyes, normally sharp and unreadable, were soft tonight. All the time, she whispered. I was close to someone, he said, voice low. He betrayed me, left me with scars I couldn't see in a mirror. She swallowed hard. Was he talking about her father? I trusted him, and he handed me to wolves. Aurora felt the words crash over her like cold water. He had been betrayed. But what if it wasn't by her father? What if everything she thought she knew was wrong? It was the kind of silence only candlelight could break. The estate had a power outage, and Aurora was stuck by the emergency panel when Adrian arrived with a flashlight and a grin. Still not afraid of the dark? She chuckled, trying to act normal. Only when I'm alone. Then I guess you're safe. He reached around her to press a switch. Their faces were inches apart. The flashlight flickered, shadows playing across his cheekbones. You're different, he murmured. She froze. How? You don't act like a guard. You don't even look at me the way others do. Their eyes locked. She should have stepped away. Instead, she whispered, maybe I see the real you. The moment cracked with tension. But before it could break into something more, the lights buzzed on, and the spell shattered. Back in her tiny room, Aurora did something reckless. She wrote him a letter. I know who you are, and one day you'll know who I am too. But until then, I just needed you to know. I see you, even when you try to hide behind all that wealth and charm. There's something deeper there, something I'm starting to... She stopped, heart racing. What was she saying? She folded the letter and tucked it in her drawer. But in her rush to hide it, she didn't realize it slipped between the cracks. The next morning, it was gone, and Adrian was waiting at the gate, holding the letter. Adrian said nothing at first. He just held the letter between his fingers, the paper creased, his expression unreadable. Aurora's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped out from the gatehouse. She tried to speak, to lie maybe, but no words came. This is yours, he finally said. She reached out slowly, but he didn't let go. Did you mean it? He asked. Her breath caught. The honesty in his voice was like a wound, raw and open. She didn't answer with words. She only nodded. Adrian stared at her a moment longer. Then gently, he let the letter fall between them and walked away. Not a word. Not a look back. But she saw it, the way his hands trembled. He wasn't untouched. The silence between them grew over the next few days, thick with unspoken words. Aurora tried to go back to normal. She wore her uniform, patrolled the gates, smiled at the drivers, but her eyes were always searching for him. One night, she found him in the stables, brushing his horse with slow, angry strokes. You read it, she said quietly. I did. And he turned, his eyes shadowed. Why write something like that and still keep your truth hidden? Aurora hesitated. Because I wanted you to see me first. Not the name, not the past. His jaw clenched. You think that would have changed how I feel? She stepped closer. Would it? He didn't move away. Instead, he touched her cheek, just once, like he'd been waiting forever to do it. I don't know, he whispered, but I haven't stopped thinking about you since the first day I saw you. And when their lips finally met, it wasn't rushed. It was fire, quiet, deep, and burning with everything they tried to suppress. The next morning, a black SUV pulled up to the estate gates. Aurora opened them. trying to stay composed, but the man who stepped out made her freeze. Sleek suit, cold eyes, her father's former advisor. He didn't recognize her, not in her disguise, but his presence chilled her to the bone. "I'm here to speak with Mr. Adrian Sinclair," he said sharply, "about a matter concerning Aurora Hastings." Her blood ran cold. She kept her voice low and steady. "He's not available right now." He sneered. "Tell him Hastings isn't as dead as he thinks, and some secrets don't stay buried." As he drove off, Aurora's hand shook. The walls she'd built were beginning to crack, and someone out there knew exactly who she was. That evening, Adrian found her by the olive trees, her face pale, her arms crossed tight across her chest. "You okay?" he asked, sensing the shift in her. She didn't answer immediately. Then, slowly, she turned to him. I need to tell you who I am." He blinked. "You don't have to." "I want to. I have to." She stepped closer, heart thudding. "My name is Aurora Hastings." Silence. "I'm not a guard. I'm the daughter of the man you said betrayed you, and I came here to find out the truth." Adrian stared at her, the world tilting beneath him, and then he did the last thing she expected. He kissed her, deeply, angrily, desperately. When he pulled away, his voice broke. "Then let's uncover together." Adrian had never felt so torn. His mind battled the storm of Aurora's confession, but his heart had already surrendered. As they stood beneath the olive trees, he didn't let go of her hand. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked. Aurora's voice was soft. "I was afraid you'd hate me because of what my father did." He looked away, jaw clenched. "Your father stole everything from mine. His name nearly ruined my family. But you're not him, Aurora." She looked up at him, searching his face. "So what now?" "We find out what really happened," he said, his grip tightening. "Together, I want to know why your father faked your death, and who's still chasing his shadow." Their eyes locked. In that moment, trust began to replace the fear. That night, Adrian led her into his private study. He pulled a leather-bound box from the bookshelf and laid it on the table. "My father kept this hidden before he died," he said. "He never told me what it contained, only that it held the truth about Hastings." Aurora's fingers trembled as she flipped it open. Inside were photographs, documents, letters. One caught her eye. A photo of her father and Adrian's father, arms around each other, smiling like brothers. "They were friends," she whispered. Adrian nodded. "Until the betrayal. Or what we thought was betrayal." There was also a sealed envelope addressed to Adrian. He opened it. Inside was a single note. The enemy wasn't Richard Hastings. It was someone closer. Someone in your own blood. They both froze. Adrian's voice dropped. "My uncle, Victor Sinclair." Adrian's uncle, the current CEO of Sinclair Holdings. Aurora stared at the note in disbelief. Why would your own uncle sabotage your father? Adrian's eyes darkened. He always wanted the company. When my father refused to step down, he must have framed Hastings to force him out. Aurora took a sharp breath. "That means my father died to protect your family." "I need proof," Adrian muttered, "and I know where to find it." The next day, they made plans to sneak into Victor's office in the city. As Aurora watched Adrian gear up, her heart swelled. The man she had feared was now the only one she trusted. He touched her cheek gently. "We're in this together, right?" She nodded, eyes shining. Until the very end. The sun had barely set when Adrian and Aurora slipped into the city. disguised under baseball caps and hooded jackets. Victor's office tower loomed ahead like a fortress. Adrian turned to her. "We have 1 hour. You take the records room. I'll access his digital files." Aurora hesitated. "Adrian, if we don't make it back." He cupped her face with both hands. "Don't say that. We will." But her eyes glistened. "Just in case," she whispered. "Kiss me like it's the last time." He didn't hesitate. He pulled her in, holding her like she was everything he'd ever lost and found again. And in that kiss, they promised each other the truth, even if it shattered everything. Then they vanished into the shadows. Together, the building's silence was eerie. Aurora's heels echoed softly against a marble floor as she slipped into the records room. The keycard Adrian gave her worked like magic. Inside, rows of metal drawers stretched before her like a vault of secrets. She worked fast. Bank transactions, signed contracts, surveillance footage. Then bingo, a black folder labeled Operation Eclipse, Hastings. Aurora opened it slowly, heart thudding. It was all there. Forged documents, stock manipulation, false accusations, all signed by Victor Sinclair. And attached to it, a death certificate that read, "Aurora Hastings deceased." Her fingers trembled. Her whole life had been stolen and rewritten. Suddenly, she heard a sound behind her, a quiet creak. She spun around. A flashlight beam hit her face. "Who's there?" a voice growled. "Like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and get ready for the next part."